Okay, we get started. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the people who have made it for the session. I know people are attending from across the globe, and we're very excited to host this particular webinar, and I'm sure you will have something to take back home from here. And just a little housekeeping things before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel. We will bring them up during the presentation. We will also have a time for questions at the end of all the presentations. Now, without further delay, I'd like to welcome on Mr. Tommy Varyanan from IBM, and he is basically the leader of AI applications. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Tommy to take this stage. Thank you very much. Tommy, over to you from here.
Thank you very much, DJ, and good morning and welcome to all of you participants of the webinar. So my name is Tommy Varjonen, and I'm the Nordic lead for AI applications at IBM. And I've been given the real pleasure to open this webinar, and I do also from my behalf believe it will be time very well spent for all of us. Now, to set the scene, I mean, in recent months, we've all realized more than ever how vital medical care is, and we've seen the importance and necessity to develop medical devices faster and faster, sometimes even in weeks rather than the years we've been accustomed to. So, for example, one successful result of such accelerated development is a ventilator built by Cambridge consultants. They developed it for the UK Ventilator Challenge in the springtime in the fast spread phase of COVID. And they had to tackle the typically very long development process in literally weeks. They chose to use IBM Engineering solution to meet this quite ambitious challenge. And you will later, by the way, see a demo of this solution. Now, COVID will eventually be defeated, but the megatrend of digitalization will for sure continue. And with that, the amount of software code in all medical and other devices will keep growing. And that makes all medical devices complex systems where the safe and proven integration of hardware, software, and other components is very demanding. And as I'm sure you all know and feel in your skin, also gathering the proper evidence for compliance can be equally demanding. Today in this webinar, we will see how IBM solutions can help you streamline these activities. And together with our partners Nohau, MicroGenesis, QAdvis, we put together this 1 hour deeply insightful webinar to address those questions. So with that scene, I would like to hand over to Robert Ginsberg from QAdvis, and he will give us a little bit more detailed view into the challenges of developing medical devices. And then you will also hear about IBM Engineering solutions or answers to those demands and see an actual demo. So thank you from my side.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Tommy. Thank you for letting us know how IBM with its engineering solution helped innovate and develop a secure ventilator, especially during the challenging times like pandemic situations. And it's quite exciting to know about this. Now, I have the opportunity to basically invite Mr. Robert, and Robert Ginsberg is the CEO of QAdvis, and which is a Swedish firm, specializes in medical device regulation. He specializes in software regulatory consulting for medtech devices and also the modern software engineering methods such as Scrum and Lean software development. He has been an active member of international standards committees such as the IEC 62304, which develops IEC 62304 or IEC 82304 and many more. And I'm also glad to know that he's also an active member of European Commissions for Medical Device Export Group for Software. Robert, over to you, and thank you.
Thank you, Jana J. Hello all, great to be part of this webinar. So my name is Robert Ginsberg and I'm located in the Stockholm office of QAdvis. I will give you a short summary of some of the challenges that many software manufacturers encounter in their efforts to comply to regulations and standards, mainly the standard IEC 62304 that we'll refer to. This is a key standard for you that are developing medical device software. I start with a short background and some words about the regulations, mainly in the EU, and some of the standards that they are pointing at. Where I said that IEC 62304 is one of the more challenging ones. I have identified 4 challenges that are relevant for today's session. They're about requirements, risk control measures to reduce risk, tracking of changes, and managing of product variants. And I will summarize my thoughts at the end. This picture depicts how mishaps and accidents lead to stricter laws and regulations as the public acceptance of risk is continuously lowered over time. An accident where someone dies or gets hurt leads to a public reaction. There are insights and pressure on our authorities to prevent this from happening again. The authorities develop the legislations based on this, and we have, in reality, a new acceptance level for mishaps established in our society. After a while, a new accident happens, and the cycle starts over again. I see this pattern in many industries, like avionics, automotive, space industry, and of course medtech, which is the topic for today. A wise manufacturer continually adjusts their quality levels over time, so in an efficient way meet those new expectations. Sorry. All the regulations have a similar pathway. They are legally binding to follow. They also point out standards that should be complied to. The manufacturers must provide that they have satisfied the regulations in question by having proper documentation in place. And the regulators provide the manufacturers with an evidence of approval, for example, a CE mark in the EU or a 510 clearance in the United States. If we take those 2 markets as an example, the expectations on documentations are similar, but to some extent different. A smart and cost-aware manufacturer generates the documentation needed without the duplication of information. We are in Europe, so we talk more about Europe. The CE mark is the key to most of Europe. It was implemented in 1985 to unify the European Union as one large market, simplifying the regulatory approvals in all countries involved. Brexit has complicated this a lot, but this is a topic for another webinar. The CE mark sets a minimum expectation level on safety and efficacy of medical devices. There are similar sets of regulations for machines, toys, electrical devices, and so on. The medical device legislations are right now changing a lot in the EU. The directives are replaced by new regulations, MDR and IVDR. These new regulations are more demanding in many areas in comparison to the predecessors, especially for software-intensive products. The expectations are raised regarding evidence that the products are safe and effective. Software quality, cybersecurity, functional safety were some of the aspects that were highlighted, implying tougher requirements. The cost of using the services of a notified body has skyrocketed, and the cost of getting the technical documentation approved is getting really significant. The manufacturers have to cope with this new ambition level and still try to stay profitable. One way to reduce the cost and efforts is to make the documentation needed consistent, correct, and well understood by all the stakeholders. And of course, generated in a cost-effective way. There are two parallel tracks to follow when CE marking a product. One is to establish a quality management system in your organization in great extent based on standard ISO 13485. The other part is about your product. Is it ready for the market? Is it safe? Is it effective? The technical file of a product will be reviewed by a notified body or might be reviewed by a competent authority for low-class products. When both those work packages are done, you can issue the CE mark and put your product on the EU market. Sorry for that. My first challenge is about requirements. Among many other things, the quality management system standards expect you to keep track of all the requirements and the verification results of those. The records are audited for inconsistencies, usually by reviewing traceability matrices. Those are created manually or automatically with dedicated software tools. The same expectations appear on software level and are elaborated on in standard IEC 62304 that you see now a screenshot of. If we simplify the standards text a little bit, it says the manufacturer shall verify that the traceability between software requirements and tests or other verification is recorded. This is a mundane and error-prone work to keep this information up to date, not mentioning the time spent on the editing, reviewing, and reporting efforts. There is usually a need for different kinds of traceability matrices depending on what is reviewed. Automated document generation with dedicated tools can really save a lot of effort here. Another challenge is to trace the risk control measures defined in the software risk assessment for the product to software requirements and further on to the verification of them. If we also simplify this text, it says the manufacturers shall document traceability of software hazards from the risk control measures to the requirements to the verification of them. This is even a more mundane and error-prone work that is also often under the scrutiny from regulators. So there is really a need to have this work done correctly and consistently. Automated document generation with dedicated tools is also here a strong recommendation from my side. The third challenge is I would like to elaborate on is about tracking of changes. There is a large amount of changes going on in a modern software-intensive department, especially if agile methodology is used. What is changed, by whom, when, what version, etc. It takes a lot of time to manually record all this data in comparison to software tools that can capture this automatically. Again, this is an area of automation. The last one I would like to mention today. Please note that in the lower box, the neonatal is crossed over. Keeping track of product requirements and all the different baselines, for example, because of different approval status in different markets, is a tough work. This challenging area can be generalized to management of several product variants. In the example above, a manufacturer must descope a product due to tougher requirements in another market. This applies also to all the downstream documents, test cases and results, user documentation, etc. This adds a lot of complexity to the development process about documentation, testing, and reporting. So, you need to have a process in place taking care of these challenges by having a number of requirement sets with its accompanying documentation, and the sets are ongoing simultaneously. I think you see the challenge here, and this is another area where proper tools can really improve the situation. So, to summarize my thoughts, my recommendation is to invest in tools that help you with the regulatory burden. They need to be flexible enough to be configured to support your processes. For example, they have to produce the reports needed to satisfy the regulators. There is, of course, an initial cost before there will be any gains. A well-tailored implementation plan can, of course, reduce the effort needed. There is also rather small but mandatory effort needed to validate the tools according to the regulatory expectations. The goal is, of course, to work less, work smarter, with higher quality. Don't hesitate to contact QAdvis when you want to discuss those topics further or have additional questions beyond this webinar. So that was all from me. Thank you for your attention.
Hey, thank you, Robert. Thank you very much, Robert, for covering the challenges that are related to manual maintenance of traceability, or say, for example, impact analysis, verification and validation, and automated document generation, the importance of that, the configuration management piece of it, and how important it is to manage an automated QMS through the tools. I think I fully understand your recommendation because you are from the industry, and I think for every audit that you go, and these are some of the challenges that you face, and I think the audience here will get benefited to see what they need to do right in order to handle these traceability, right from requirements to verification and validation, and then managing traceability or linking between various artifacts across the life cycle of medical device development. And of course, configuration management, basically a reuse of a set of requirements to create variants, and it's difficult to do it manually. and hence there is an importance needed to be put for using automated tool. Thank you once again for covering this important challenges and for your recommendations. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Now I have the opportunity to welcome Michael Helder. Michael Helder is part of Worldwide Offering Management team at IBM for IBM Engineering Lifecycle Management Solution. In this role, he defines, prioritizes, and plans the set of features and capabilities into the engineering products that are developed to support complex engineering at scale with compliance to standard for industries such as medtech, automotive, A&D, and many more. Michael, stage is yours, and thank you very much.
Thank you, DJ.
Yeah.
I have the pleasure now to introduce to you IBM Engineering Lifecycle Management. Before we go into it, let's have a look first on what it is about. It is an application portfolio that helps you to capture requirements, manage requirements. It allows you to model and execute system and software behavior. So if you are using SysML or UML, you can do that in the tools and model your system there, also model the dynamic behavior. Then we have a testing capability in which you can plan and execute tests. You can also link those tests to the architecture, to the requirements. And lastly, there is one part. This is about workflow management. With that, we mean everything that is related to collaboration. So you can plan your work, you can track your work, you can assign tasks to individuals, you can also track risks there. And yeah, with this, we have a pretty broad scope in the portfolio, so you can manage all artifacts when it comes to design, but also the collaboration around it. And with that, I try to go to the next slide here, but I'm not sure if I have control yet. Yeah, looks like I have it. So one thing before we get started is just to have a view on how this portfolio is positioned in the marketplace. So we picked here one analysis report on ALM and DevOps. In general, IBM Engineering is used in regulated industries. Software is a large part of these complex systems now. So this is why this ALM and DevOps report is a good indicator here on how to think about the position of IBM Engineering. And what we see is the portfolio has a very high technology score. So that's because it's a very mature product portfolio. It's on the market since more than 20 years, and it has a high market impact. So many companies are using it with often many users. So you can use it with dozens of users, but we also have customers who use it with hundreds and thousands of users. So some customers use the application portfolio for more than 15,000 engineers. Today, when we look at the challenges that Robert presented to us and what the portfolio can do for you, we focus on three themes. One is to improve quality. This is mainly achieved by enabling full transparency to enable the right decisions. Other one is to reduce time to innovation. We'll talk about that also later, and then reduce costs of compliance. So three big themes, three bold statements, because it's like we have three holy grails here, but let's dive right into it and see how the portfolio really helps with it. So strategic theme number one is to improve quality, and it's about giving the team full transparency. Let's take a look at the situation we have today in many companies. Often what you see is that there is a combination of silo tools and documents, and that causes several pain points. I just read through these real quick. Non-optimal designs due to early design lock, expensive rework due to late discovery of issues, inefficient supplier collaboration, high costs for regulatory compliance activities, slow response to change requests. So the big issue is basically, whenever you have to do a change, it's hard to really apply this change to all the other documents, make sure that all the documents are up to date and are consistent to each other. This is something you have to do when you want to do a change request, when you want to respond to a bid request. You need to do some kind of impact analysis and really understand on what parts of a design need to change, how big the impact is, and if you have everything in different documents, then that gets rather cumbersome. So the goal is to tear down the silos to establish one consistent truth. And this is where IBM Engineering comes in. And I just like to differentiate the topic of quality a little bit here between an organizational quality management system and what IBM Engineering is focused on when talking about quality. So an organizational quality management system is very high level. It's used across the whole organization to ensure that the employees have the right skills, so the competence of resources, also used to maintain compliance evidence, more in a sense of I need to store a certain certificate somewhere, I need to have some signed document in a document management system and know where to find it, or to monitor supplier quality. So if you're doing assessments or if you need to store audit results somewhere, that's the organizational quality management system. On engineering level, it's really about responding to the problems, to the requests from the market, and then to plan and track and execute on those requirements. So it is about knowing what changes, giving people the work and tracking that it is implemented. And for that, you need to understand the artifact dependencies. And in an ideal case, you can reuse artifacts in a controlled manner. So you know what changed and what the impact of that change was. So with this, I think it gets clear, IBM Engineering is more focused on the execution part, on the technical side of things when it comes to managing the quality. We go one level deeper here on this picture in differentiating those two, and it basically contains the core value proposition of the portfolio, what it enables you to do. So we have here an example of how a change request would be dealt with in the system. And you see that we have on the left side here different entities like requirements modules, actual change requests, a task that implements that change requests. And this change request is related to test cases, to requirements. It was defined by a work item template. And all those entities are connected with links with each other. And this is what the portfolio allows you to do. So instead of managing one big requirements document as a monolith, you basically can break it down into individual entities, and every one of those entities is like a one part of a knowledge graph which you can navigate through with links. So everything is related with each other, and you have a very granular way on how to capture it. We will see that in the demo later, but what is already important to know is you can generate reports to report on every one of those entities, and including all the links, also create reports to detect missing links. And this is how you can then generate PDF files, which again are then more like a document you can check in to a traditional QMS system, where you may have some kind of workflow around it, how this PDF is then handled. But you can also have a workflow on the left side, right, to handle the creation of these requirements test cases, and how you do these tasks. They are also have their own workflow on how they are proceeded to completion. So that's a little bit the differentiation, and this is what makes the portfolio really that powerful. Right? You have like a knowledge vector in it. What makes Google so powerful, because they can navigate and understand the relationships between websites. What makes Facebook so powerful, because they understand relationships between human beings. This is what IBM Engineering is for engineering data. To give you an outlook here on what we will see in the demo later, this is how the tools look like. So different tools for different domains. We have one for requirements management, workflow management. We see here how a change request would be tracked. We have a test management view here. So it's a consistent UI, and for different roles, we have then a different client to access this data graph. The idea is then to have one single source of truth that you can plan, design, develop, and test your products. We see a couple of roles highlighted here, like integration tester, software engineer, project manager. And with the platform, you can also bring together different teams, right? Different teams may also work according to different processes. So on this slide, you may have a team A who develops a software component according to Scrum. Then you may have a team B, which is responsible for a larger software and hardware, maybe including the integration component. They work according to large scale agile, because they are more a team of teams, so they can have their own process in there. And then you have a team C, who is responsible to develop a mechanical component or a hardware component, and they may choose to work according to waterfall. And team D, they may, for example, develop a machine learning algorithm where we don't know what's the best process here. They have a custom process. So all these four teams, at the end of the day, they work together to deliver one system. And within the IBM engineering tools, they can collaborate with each other, they can orchestrate their work, and they can reuse their work. And this gives the teams really a single source of truth. This enables the transparency to make the right decisions at the right time. And with that, I would like to come to the strategic theme number 2, reduce costs of compliance. And we don't have much time. We want to spend quite some time in the tools for the demo. So we just deliver you something like an eye test here on what the coverage of IBM Engineering covers and what tools are in the system and are in all products to work in regulatory markets. So here we have a high-level mapping for IEC 62304. You don't need to go into details here, but you see that for every one of those process groups, like established software maintenance plan, problem and modification analysis, we mapped an IBM Engineering capability to it. So in blue, you see the main application. One is called Doors Next, one is called Rhapsody, and those you would use to work in these process groups. And beneath, we have in fine print a support application. So this is also an application that is part of the IBM Engineering platform, which help you to cover remaining process requirements that may not be satisfied by the main tool we put here. The big conclusion is you can work in this process here and in other processes end-to-end in the platform. And this makes it possible to create one consistent end-to-end data set, which means that the work you do in there, that your work implicitly becomes a reportable, traceable work product. So there should be no extra activity to transfer data between files. It's really like you generate the report you need. And on the bottom right, we see a technology that enables all that. This is called OSLC. So these are standard link types. This is a
standard also application interface. You can plug other tools in there. Many applications support that standard, and all applications that support that standard you can plug in. Could be, for example, specialized testing applications. E-signatures are a big topic in the medical device sector. So just to let you know here, in IBM Engineering, you can use e-signature for a variety of artifacts. In example, work items. So you can sign tasks, you can sign reviews, you can sign change requests, and you can also precisely define when you want to sign such artifact. So you can define conditions, roles, really tailored to your process. You can also sign requirement baselines, so snapshots of your requirements. You can also sign test plans and test cases. And with that, I would just like to cover a few other requirements here. So when we look at CFR Part 11, we have electronic records audit trail. Be aware that an audit trail is established across all record types. So for requirements, tests, change requests, you can see who changed what. That's just in by default. Electronic records, immutability of data. Engineering has the concept of baselines. So this is great read-only snapshots of requirements artifacts, test artifacts, models, and code. You can do it for all of these artifacts. Access to data. There are predefined roles, like the ones I shown on the previous slide, with people who are testers, people who are project managers, some are just stakeholders, only have read-only access. So there are predefined roles in the tool, but you can also define your own. And the roles, they cross the applications. So as a tester, you may have read-only access to the requirements management capability, but you have your write access to the tests. Electronic records as papers. This is where I said you can generate PDF files. And electronic signatures, yeah, we talked about that. And with that, I would like to come to the last strategic theme here. It's unfortunate that we don't have much time, and I chose a rather complex one here, but that's the most important one. It's about reusing the artifacts you have, because this is really what can speed up the process of releasing new products quite a bit, developing new components. I will talk about two enablers that are necessary for reuse, and these two enablers are in the solution. So the first enabler is that the solution should be capable to cover a broad scope of artifacts, and that's the case for IBM Engineering. So we have here a high-level mapping of quality management artifacts, but also of work products that are required by the medical device software development lifecycle. And you see that there are different tools, different capabilities for every one of those work products. Cannot go into detail here, but just guess this conclusion became already clear with the last chapter. And the second reuse enabler is that you have sophisticated capabilities to control the evolution of design data with configurations. So you may have for different markets, different set of requirements, and you may want to reuse some requirements, but you want to add some other requirements for another market. So these are different configurations for one project, for one requirements project, and you can do that with the tools. But not only for requirements, also for architecture, quality management, for source code management. And you can bring them together in some kind of a meta configuration, right? That shows, okay, these requirements, they belong to this architecture and to these tests here. And that's actually the powerful part, right? Where you then can have a new configuration in which you just reuse large parts of an already released product. So it's quite straightforward to implement such functionality. It's quite challenging to do it in a way
that you don't blow up your database, so that you really are still capable of reusing changes between the different configurations. So if you make an update to the variant for the EU market, you can reuse all those changes then for your variants for the US market, have a controlled reuse and change process in there. And yeah, that allows you then to innovate faster. And it's the end of this presentation here. So I summarize, right? We saw quality management, or IBM Engineering focuses more on the technical parts of it, enables better quality by allowing everyone to access a single source of truth. We saw cost of compliance. So the system is built for compliance, and we saw reuse with configuration management here. With that, I would like to hand over to DJ.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much for covering the IBM Engineering Solutions capabilities. And I think it was very interesting to know how IBM Engineering Solutions help overcome challenges mentioned by Robert in his earlier presentation. How adopting IBM Engineering Solutions, we can improve quality, reduce time of innovation, and also reduce cost of important thing is compliance, because that a lot of money goes into maintaining or managing compliance. And also it was very interesting to know about the IBM Engineering Solution capability, how that assists in regulatory compliances such as IEC 62304 or 13485. I was also thrilled to know that how FDA 21 CFR Part 11, the digital signature part, how your solution basically complies to it, and automated document generation, which is where a lot of time spent in maintaining or generating or creating those documents, how the solution basically automates it. And then it was quite interesting to know how requirement specs, and not only that, the entire artifacts which are used for developing medical device can be reused to create variants of the same device for the same market or for different markets, because that's one, and that saves a lot of time in reinventing. It basically saves time in by stopping reinvention of wheel and things like that. So it basically promotes reusability. Organizations basically gain significant advantage of reusability. And very interesting to know that solution allows you to break silos, where it allows various system engineering teams who are involved in developing medical device to collaborate effectively, and that too especially by having single source of truth. That means anything that is updated here, all the people would see the same thing. They don't have to just wait for somebody to update them. That was an interesting piece. Thank you, Michael, once again. And it was very insightful. Thank you. Okay, with that, I'd like to now let's move on. I'm very excited to basically, see this product in live. And we have Nikki Chris John. He's basically the manager for technical services and subject matter expert on IBM Engineering Lifecycle Management Solutions at MicroGenesis. And in this role, he basically helps clients from various industries such as medical, automotive, A&D, and transportation to successfully implement, adopt IBM Engineering Lifecycle Solutions. Nikki, we are very excited to see, we are keenly waiting for your demo, and off to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, DJ, for that quick introduction.
Yeah, I'll just give over the control to you so that you can. I hope you have the control.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
go ahead.
Hope you're able to see my screen.
Yes, we can.
All right. So good morning, everyone. Today, I'm going to demonstrate to you the features of IBM ELM. And for the demo, I would be using an infusion pump project as an example, and I'll be demonstrating the various artifacts, that would be captured during your project lifecycle. So the various artifacts can be your requirements, your design, your code, your test artifacts, or various other supporting artifacts such as your change request or your day-to-day tasks that can be managed using IBM ELM solution. So I'd be talking to you on how you would be able to manage these various artifacts using IBM ELM. But before we get into IBM ELM and the capabilities of the solution, I would quickly want to take you through Method Composer and show you how a process such as IEC 62304 can be captured and managed using Method Composer, and how this can act as a process guidance during the development of your project. Post to this, I'll also be talking about how you would be able to enact this process. So moving into the solution, what you're seeing here is your Method Composer, and this is an example of IEC 62304 process template. So you have various details such as your delivery process, your objectives, your practices, and various other tasks that will be involved during the development of your project. So if I move into the delivery process, I'll be able to see that there are multiple practice areas that is part of the delivery process, such as your pre-spiral planning, your setting up of your development environment, how you develop your requirements, how you would be able to manage and control your project, the microcycle, which primarily talks about your design, and your VNV, that is your verification and validation. It also talks about how you would be able to manage the various changes that would come up during the development of your project. And it also talks about how each of the artifacts that you're going to create during these phases has to be under configuration management. Now, if I want to go into details about one of these activities or one of this process, I could just click on the link, and it takes me into the process and gives me a detail about what are the activities that I have to perform in this phase. So this, what you're seeing here, is a requirements develop requirements phase, and here you're able to see the role, the set of artifacts that needs to be created, and the various tasks that will be assigned to this specific role. Similarly, you have multiple roles that are defined over here and the activities that they will have to perform to capture the requirements. Now, if we take an example of one use case, this talks about analyzing and refining stakeholder requirements. And if I click on this, it takes me into the process and tells me what is the purpose of this activity, who is supposed to perform it, what are the input that is required, and what are the outputs that would be generated once this task is completed. It also tells me, it gives me a detailed description of how I would be able to perform this activity and the various steps that would be required for performing this activity. So if I click on one of the steps over here, it gives a detailed explanation on how I will be able to gather stakeholder requests. And if I want to have more details on the various techniques that I'll have to use to gather stakeholder request, I could just click on the link over here, and it gives me an elaborated detail. Tells me what are the sources from which I'll be able to gather my requirements, what are the techniques that I can use to gather my requirements, and a detailed description about each of these techniques. So the process is very well detailed over here. You also have details of the team members who will be responsible for developing your requirements. It can be your QA, your requirements engineer, your reviewers, and so on. And if I click on one of these roles, I'll be able to see what are the activities that would be assigned to this role during the development of requirements, and what are the artifacts that this role would be responsible for, that is your requirements engineer, what he would be responsible for. And it also has details about the competency or the skills that is required for a requirements engineer. So you have the details with respect to the roles also captured over here. Similarly, you have a detailed description for each of your activities or each of your phases captured in your template. Due to the time constraint, I'm not going to go into details about each of the process. Moving on, you also have objectives with respect to various phases like your requirements phase or your software development phase, your risk analysis, and so on. So if I go to one of these objectives, I'll be able to see what is the objective that is displayed over here. So this talks about classification of your software. You will have to classify it into class A or class B or class C, the software that you're going to develop, that is captured over here as an objective. Similarly, you have multiple objectives captured for various of your areas. Like risk, it says how safety analysis has to be performed, and it also tells you that this is an objective that's applicable only for B and C and not for class A. So similarly, you have n number of sections that's available over here to give you more details about how you would be able to ensure that you're complying to IEC 62304 while developing your project. Now, with the tight integration that's available between Method Composer and EWM, you will be able to enact the process that is captured in Method Composer. So it's just not a guideline, it helps you to enact your process. So let's assume that I'm in the requirements phase. I have my stakeholder needs and I want to elaborate them into stakeholder requirements, and from there to my system requirements and so on. What I could do is I could just go into EWM. So I'm currently in EWM. So I could go into EWM and create a set of tasks using the template that's available over here. So me as a project manager will only have to file this set of tasks to the team who's supposed to perform this activity, and also to the phase in which the activity has to be performed. So the moment I click on finish, a set of tasks would be created in the background, and what exactly is present over here. So if I click on one of these tasks, it takes me into see that it talks about elaborating system requirement specification. And if I go into the links, I'll be able to see there are multiple child tasks that is associated to this parent task. Now, me as a project manager can go into this specific task and assign it to one of my team members. So I assign it to Pete. I also provide a estimated time within which the activity has to be completed, and the due date within which the activity has to be performed. And the moment I click on save, there will be a mail notification that will be triggered to Pete, informing him that there is a task assigned to him. And once he logs into EWM, he'll be able to see the task, and he'll also be able to see the details of the task. Now, the task is to analyze and refine stakeholder requirements. Now, if he wants to know how he has to perform this task, he could just click on this link over here, and it takes him directly into into Method Composer, and it tells him what are the various activities that he'll have to perform for analyzing and refining the stakeholder requirements. So that's how the tight integration between EWM and Method Composer is going to help you. These tasks also has relationship that is created by default because I've used the template. So by looking at this task, I'll be able to know that this task is blocking two other tasks, which is part of requirements analysis phase. So I can look at this and I can understand unless I finish analyzing and refining stakeholder requirements, my team members will not be able to generate system requirements or link stakeholder requirements and system requirements. So that's how you are able to create multiple work items using the templates that's available in your solution. Now moving on, talking about requirements, DOSNext or Engineering Requirements Management DOSNext is the solution using which you will be able to capture your requirements. Now, assuming that we are still in the requirements phase and my stakeholder needs are currently available, and if I want to start writing in my system stakeholder requirements or my product requirements, I could go in and create a module. And when I'm creating a module, I could also select a template based on which I would want to create a module. So I've just given the name as PR, that stands for product requirements, and I've clicked on OK, and the module starts getting created in the background. Now this module will have a template created automatically, or an outline that will be created automatically, and me as a requirements engineer will only have to worry about capturing the requirements. The process or the template that I'll have to follow will be automatically created in the background for me, as you're seeing over here. So you can see an outline is populated over here, and I will have to worry about only capturing my requirements. So I could just go in and type in my requirements and select the type of artifact that I want it to be, and just click on OK. So you can see the requirements gets captured over here. So once I capture all my requirements, this is how your document is going to look. You can see that you have your headings, your subheadings, your requirements, which can be again information. You can also have images that's created using third-party application that can be loaded into your requirements document. You could also have graphical artifacts that is created using the notations that's available in doors next. And you will also be able to create tables, and in tables you'll be able to capture various details. So you get to define how many rows and how many columns that you would want to create in the table, and you could also capture requirements. Now once requirements are captured, you will also be able to create a relation between your requirements. Now what you're seeing over here is a product requirement which is in turn linked to a system requirement, and you can see the relation over here. And if I hover over this, I'll be able to see the detail of the system requirement that this specific requirement is linked to. Or I could just click on the view. We have multiple views available over here. So if I click on one of these views, I'll be able to see all the product requirements and the corresponding system requirements. So I'll be able to see all the related requirements in a single window. Or if I want to view it in a traceability matrix, I would want to see all the requirements or all the design or various other artifacts that's related to this specific requirement. I could just go into the traceability explorer, and here I'll be able to see this specific requirement is related to a system requirement, and from the system requirement there's a link to a software requirement. It is validated by a test case that's present in Archeum, and by just hovering over it, I'll be able to know what is the status of this test case. It's still in draft state. And I will also be able to see the various architectural diagrams that is created to elaborate this requirement. So I can see there is a sequence diagram that is associated to this specific requirement. Now this diagram is created using Rhapsody, and we will talk about it later in detail. I could also click on this link, and the tool would take me directly into that specific requirement. Now I also have various other views using which I'll be able to see all the requirements that are related to each other in a single window. As you're seeing over here, you can see this is your product requirement. From the product requirement, you have derived your system requirement, and from your system requirement, you have derived your software requirement. And from there, you could have multiple other links. Or I could use one of these views over here, which will give me a complete lifecycle traceability. It will tell me the requirement, the design that is associated to the requirement, or the code that is linked to this specific requirement, or the test case that is used for validating this requirement. So you have the entire detail available for you over here. You also get to capture additional information, like let's say you want to capture your risk, your hazards, you want to do your FMEA analysis. You have all those also available in the tool, using which you will be able to capture these details. And once your requirements are derived, you will be able to create your designs out of your requirements. Now designs would be created using Rhapsody. Rhapsody is a powerful tool using which you will be able to create your designs. It can either be UML based or SysML based diagrams that you get to create. And once you create these diagrams, you'll be able to push it into engineering workflow management. And once it is pushed into engineering workflow management, you will be able to link these designs to a requirement that it is elaborating, or to a test case that it is validating. So these designs are not just for representational purpose. You will also be able to execute these designs, and you will be able to simulate them if required. Rhapsody also helps you to do forward engineering and reverse engineering. You also have a source code management capability available in the solution, using which you will be able to version control your designs. So the designs that you created using Rhapsody can be version controlled and managed using EWM. You can also version control your code that you'll be developing for your product using EWM. You could have multiple stream strategies, or you could create multiple environments based on which you will be able to push the code maybe into your development environment first, and from there to your integration environment. And once your integration testing is done, you can move to your production environment where your release could actually happen. So this is something that's possible using EWM. You also have a build capability available in the solution. So EWM is shipped along with a build engine, that is Jazz build engine, using which you will be able to trigger the build execution. Or you could also integrate with popular build automation solution or CI/CD applications such as Urban Code Deploy or BuildForge or Jenkins and Maven and so on. So this is again a facility that's available in the solution. And EWM also supports project planning. So as part of your project planning, you would want to create tasks and assign it to each of your team members. You will be able to do that using EWM, and you have multiple views using which you will be able to view the progress of your project from multiple perspectives. Like let's say you have your Gantt chart or your work breakdown structure, using which you will be able to track the progress of uh, uh, each of your team members, or the progress of each of the activities that you are assigned to each of your team members. So a project plan is again something that's available by default in the solution. You also have a test management feature that's available in the solution, using which you will be able to manage your test artifacts. So you have a test plan that you could create in ETM. So I've switched to ETM now. You will be able to create test plans in ETM, and you will be able to capture additional information, like let's say your business objective, your test objective. You can ensure that your test plan goes through a review and approval process before it is ready to be implemented. You could also link it to your requirements or to your design. You could do a risk assessment, capture your estimations or the environments that is required for conducting the test. You could also capture various details like your entry criteria, your exit criteria, and so on. And once your test plan is in place, you will be able to create your test cases. So now you can see this is my test plan, that is my system test protocol, and I can see there are 11 test cases associated to this specific test plan. And if I want to go into one of these test cases, I could just hover over it and get a detail of it, or I could just click on it and it takes me into that specific test case, and I'll be able to see the various data that I've captured with respect to this test case. Now, you can have a review process for this individual test case. You can ensure it goes through a review and approval process, and only then it's ready for execution. You could link a test case to a development item, that is a task that is created in EWM, or you could link it to a requirement that is present in DOS Next, or you could link it to an architectural diagram that's present in EWM, which is created using Rhapsody.
Yeah, Nikki,
you
you
could
can
also,
wrap it up in 1 minute.
yeah, yes,
Thank
yes. You could also capture various other details such as your risk and so on. And if I want to see the execution record of this test case, I could go into the test execution and I'll be able to see when this test case was executed. And if I want to see the previous result, I have it available over here. Click on one of this test results and I'll be able to see that this was a test case that failed, and I'll be able to see where exactly it failed and what was the reason for the failure. There is a defect that is created and captured in EWM. I could click on it and it would take me to EWM. And the last component that I quickly want to cover is your engineering insights, using which you will be able to get an insight of the project and the progress of the project. Like if I take an example of the view that we are seeing over here, I'll be able to see that this view is telling me out of 20 stakeholder requirements that I have, there are only 7 which are linked to system requirement. There are 13 which are not linked to system requirement. Similarly, a system requirement, there are 20 system requirements in which 9 are linked to software requirements and 11 are not linked to software requirements. Or the system requirements in which 11 are having a test case associated to it and 9 does not have a test case associated to it. So by looking at this, I'll be able to perform a gap analysis and understand what is missing, what are yet to be created or linked, and I'll also be able to understand the traceability aspect of it. With that, I've completed my demo, and I'll over to you, Dhananjay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nikki. I know it's difficult for you to, demonstrate everything in the given time, and I think you did a very good job in covering features and capabilities of IBM Engineering Solution, which included right from requirements management, and you covered traceability, you covered impact analysis, you covered automatic audit trail, linking across the other artifacts such as requirements, design, test artifacts, which was interesting. Then you showed how project planning can be done, creating a WBS structure, work breakdown structure, how you could see various dashboards, which will give me current status of the project. Then I think you did cover configuration management and how you do version control and execution by creating change request management and custom workflows for the same. And then risk management, I think that's one of the interesting thing. Hazard management is another important piece that is there in the solution. Test management, which included not only just about creating test plans, but creating test cases, executing your test cases, maintaining your test execution records was very interesting to note. And finally, you sort of also covered the engineering insights, which was interesting to know that it would give you an overall project status and its progress across the life cycle. And you started off with a very good process wiki. It's a very good guide because most of the medtech engineers either they have some knowledge or they do not have any knowledge of this particular process in detail. I think the process wiki that you showed, very clearly explains how IEC 62304 or 13485 or many other standards that are supported by your solution kind of gives the details of breakdown and who has to do what activity and what are the steps that have to be followed. Interestingly, I was very excited to know that it also enacts this process templates into an executable ones, which is very interesting. And I thank you once again for this insightful demo. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you, DJ.
Yeah. Okay. So before we go on to question and answer, I'd like to basically cover just a minute. I'll just put my presentation. Okay. Okay. I hope you're able to see my screen. Yeah. Good. Okay. So I'd like to take this opportunity to sort of thank Chanda for this. Chanda is basically, a senior manager at Watson IoT BU in IBM Sweden. She basically advocates her clients on right solution for, implementation of software or system engineering lifecycle solutions to speed up innovation and develop quality products. And thank you, Chanda, personally for putting everybody together to make this webinar a big possibility. And thank you once again. And this was DJ Dhananjay, so it's me and who was your moderator. And now I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Joachim for the final conclusion notes. And after that, we will definitely answer all your questions. Joachim comes with about 20 years of experience in helping his clients with a cost-effective engineering solution, state-of-the-art technologies, methods, and products, and of course brings a lot of training options to all us embedded software development clients, including medtech and automotive, aerospace, and defense. Joachim, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, DJ. Yeah, my name is Joachim. I work at Nohau in Sweden, in Malmö. So innovate at speed is hard. It requires you to have a very skilled team of experts working all together and towards the same goal. And that's why we have formed this team of 4 companies, Nohau, IBM, MicroGenesis, and QAdvis, to assist you in order to innovate and even faster. So what we have learned today is that the IBM Engineering solution gives one single source of truth for different engineering roles, and that increases the quality and also the ease of the compliance process. Nohau has for almost 40 years helped companies use professional tools, and beside the IBM ELM solution, we also have other solutions for compliance, like static analysis tools, unit testing tools, and so on. So if you would like to have a more demo, deeper and not so fast demo as Nikki did, you can contact us at Nohau Solution, or you can contact Chanda at IBM. So MicroGenesis is offering adaptations like test integrations and so on, and they do implementation, consulting, and support, and managed services around that. So you can feel comfortable of introduce this solution to your company. They also offering developing resources and testing capabilities on consultant basis. And of course, if you want a trusted partner in the medical device and in vitro diagnosis device industry, QAdvis is the answer. They have specialists and quality specialists in the regulatory area. So they can do a lot of training and they have experts ready for you. So to summarize, we have formed a team of companies that will help you with tool, processes, and people. So now we will start the Q&A session. So DJ, did we get any questions?
Yeah, Joachim, I think we have multiple questions that have come up. So I would start off with one. I think there was one question which came up in the forum, which says, I think this was meant for Robert. Robert, if you can just answer this question. You say that, the question is from John Anderson, and you say document generated is of huge help. Can one use a model that is SysML based model where all information is connected as material for proving compliance? In other words, not textual requirements but model requirements. Can you help answer this? So in a simple layman term, can we use a SysML based requirements management instead of using a traditional document based requirements management? What was this question from a regulatory perspective? Is that acceptable?
I think it is accepted as long as it's both understandable and possible to extract from the systems, because they have to be sent to someone reviewing them. So as long as that is fulfilled, I don't see any issues with it.
Okay, thank you, Robert. And I think John, one more additional extension to that same thing is basically, in case even if you have your requirements in a textual form, I think IBM Engineering solution basically converts them into a graphical representation. I think you saw them even in the demo, that it basically whatever connections that you've created, it basically represents that in a graphical form, the entire traceability. You have a facility to import these requirements into modeling tools such as Rhapsody, which supports both SysML and UML, and you could achieve the same. Yeah, I think thanks, Robert, for answering that question. Yes, regulatory body accepts even model-based requirements documents. Yeah, that's interesting to know.
As long as they understand what's written there.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, thank you. Good. Okay, we have another question. So that basically is from Mr. Oscar. What is the minimum organization size, would you say, to, I think he's talking about adopting the solution. Chanda, do you see, is there a size of the organization that is needed basically to accommodate such a solution? What do you feel? I mean, is it possible for a smaller company to adopt such a solution?
Yes, of course. So I don't think size of the organization is one criteria here. We have solutions which are tailored for various customers with very different needs. So what you can do is, if your organization is small, you can adopt our tools. Start with requirements management and then slowly adopt to other areas such as change and configuration. And the other way to look at it is you may have, for now, like you're saying, you have small set of users. You can start small, and as more number of users join, you can expand gradually. Hope I was able to answer your question.
Yeah, good. I think that size doesn't really matter, even if it is a one-person team that can still adopt, because there are various options as per you to start off with even one person as well. Thank you. And there's another question from the same gentleman. I think Michael can take up this question. So can this suite of products that we showed today, can this be used for process other than software development? What he means is, okay, your suite mostly talked about software engineering, but can this be used for other processes such as Kappa or 13485, design and development? How flexible is the solution to implement other department needs?
Yeah.
Michael?
So can you hear me okay? Because my headphones.
Yes.
Okay.
We can
Yeah, we can.
Good. Yeah. So the solution is very flexible. So the process that Nikki demonstrated, you can actually author it yourself. So it's the solution is in general good for everything when it comes to regulated system development, but the system consists of multiple parts. So it can either be software, hardware, mechanical parts. Yeah. For some, you may have to do a little bit more process authoring yourself, but in general, it's a general purpose application portfolio.
Okay, good. Thank you, Michael. I think that generally answers your question. We have one more question. I think I would probably prefer Chanda answer this.
Okay.
Most of our requirements analysts are not formal requirement authors. Does your solution provide recommendation or best practices in writing requirements? An interesting question.
Oh, that's a very good question. So IBM does really have done some great work in this area, I would say. We have Watson AI-powered solutions named IBM Engineering Requirements Quality and Assist, popularly known as RQA, which comes with pre-trained mod based on INCOSE guidelines. So what it does is it basically checks requirements for common mistakes and anomalies, and provides recommendations to correct it in a real time. So yeah, definitely, we have solutions around it to answer your question.
Oh, it's interesting to know that you have an AI-based an engine which will basically, kind of scan through the requirements and recommend and suggest what is the best way to write them. Interesting. That'll help a lot of people who are writing requirements. Thank you, Chanda.
Yeah.
And I have one more question. I think this would be better if Joachim answers this question. Joachim, here is a question. I like this platform, but would like my large team at my office to see the detailed feature and its fitment. How can you help us? And how do you assist us with the evaluation? Joachim?
Yes, you can contact me or Chanda, and what we can do is that we help you to set up a proof of concept or a deep demo, and then you can have evaluation licenses for a while, and we assist you during the whole process that you can evaluate this tool. So just contact me, and we will arrange something for your company.
Okay, interesting to know that. So you sort of what are the modes of evaluation? Let's say if a client would like to evaluate, does he need to have a system, or you have some sort of cloud-based instance where they can get their hands dirty, Joachim?
There is both cloud-based instances, but it's also possible to do an on-premises evaluation where you install it on server. It's a little bit more work, but you can also protect your data in that sense if your company have this kind of regulation that you don't want to put it on the cloud. But otherwise, there is cloud solution that is very secure and so on.
Thank you, Joachim. And we have one more question, I think, for Robert. Robert, what are the best practices and importance of tools for QMS? I know you covered in the presentation, but I think just in short, if you have to answer one of the questions.
I think the tools need to have a number of aspects. One important thing is the digital signatures, which is a big burden if you don't have them, because especially in Corona times where we are so distributed, work from home, I think digital signatures is one of the key aspects that has to be there. Another aspect is the audit trail functionality, who has changed what and when. Not only because of the Part 11 requirements in US, it's also because to use the system to understand what's going on. And the third one is about customization. If the QMS software enables the customization needed, so the software is adjusted to your current processes.
Okay.
So those are
Thank
the
you.
three aspects I would like to highlight.
Thank you, Joachim. Thank you very much. And sorry, yeah. No, we have one more question. I think it would be good if Nikki can answer this question. How tools can help simplify audit trail? I think you covered about requirements management in detail, Nikki. And how do you think it helps in audit trail, which is quite important for compliance and the entire requirements traceability and requirements management? So can you just explain a little?
Sure, DJ. Yeah, so audit trail is an inbuilt capability that's available in the solution. So any artifact that you create, be it in ERM or EWM or ETM, there is a history that gets created in the background, and this history will keep track of who created it, when it was created, and so on. And let's say tomorrow, if someone is going to change a requirement, or let's say someone is going to change a test case, you can enforce a mechanism where there has to be a change request that has to be created, based on which the change can be implemented, and the system also captured details about who modified the specific artifact or when it was modified, what was the reason for the modification, and so on. So the tool has a powerful audit trail mechanism using which you will be able to keep track of the various changes that you would have done to your project artifacts.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Now, Michael, you have a question. So what are the best practice and how your platform helps manage regulatory compliance?
Yeah, best practice is to have a process, documented process in place, of course, and then establish the right granularity when it comes to capturing requirements. So there are different levels you should consider, right? Stakeholder, system, subsystem. Also establish what links you want to use between entities, and then just create reports to make sure that you adhere to your own process. So you can create reports to detect exceptions. In example, there is a link missing. You don't know what the subsystem requirement does, why it is there. Right? It should be linked to a stakeholder requirement. You can also detect then when there are requirements that have no test cases attached to it and no successful test cases. So define your process, establish your data model, and then monitor that you have a consistent data set.
Okay, good. Thank you, Joachim. Nikki, you have one more question on the collaboration features. How collaboration features in the platform that you've demonstrated helps medical device development teams, particularly the cross-functional development teams?
Okay, the collaboration. Okay, there are inbuilt collaboration mechanism that's available in your ELM solution, using which you will be able to collaborate with various of your team members. It is not restricted to a specific team alone. So there are collaboration mechanism that's available, using which a requirements engineer could coordinate or collaborate with a designer or with a developer or with a test engineer. So you have an option of creating inline discussions or comments, and you would be able to direct these comments to a particular user. So you can direct it to one of the team members, and they would get a mail notification based on which they can go into this application and respond back to the comment that is provided over here. And the advantage is you could pinpoint to a specific artifact. So let's say if you want to create a discussion for a specific requirement among your hundreds of requirements that you would have, if you want to create a discussion for a specific requirement, you could go into that artifact and create a comment and direct it to a specific user, and the user could come in and respond to your comment. So these comments are again going to be part of the requirement, and it's going to be available for you for later references also. So that's how the collaboration is possible in the ELM solution.
Good, thank you. I think it was well answered. Chanda, you have one more question that's come up. We don't have too much of focus on in-house IT, because this being a small medtech development company, can we use these solutions on cloud? Is there an option for us to start up with cloud? You're on mute, Chanda.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, no, it's loud and clear.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm saying the answer is yes. We offer very flexible SaaS licensing options, where we offer all our applications as single tenant, secured managed service on IBM's cloud, which was earlier software. And IBM manages and maintains the infrastructure, the application, upgrades and patches completely, and without straining or depending on your IT.
Okay, interesting. Now there was one more question. Okay, I think this may be for Robert. Is there anything similar for 60601-1 in terms of process work items generation? I think maybe
601.
601-1.
601. I'm not fully understand the question.
Okay, is there? Okay, maybe I will ask Nikki. Nikki, do we have a process template for 6060-1 or something similar to 13485 or 62304?
I need to comment this a little bit, that the 62304 is a process standard, and then you have a process supporting the tools. 60601-1 is not really the process standard the same way, so it's more of a product standard. Just a comment from my side.
Okay, I think that was the last question, and thank you very much. And I'm extremely sorry that we have overshooted our webinar by 5 to 10 minutes, and I hope this really helped everyone get some good insights about what current trends in the medtech industry and some of the challenges that the industry is going through in maintaining traceability, impact analysis, regulatory compliance, innovating at speed and quality without compromising on quality, and how engineering solution basically help overcome these challenges and successfully handle these challenges using this great solution called IBM Engineering Solution. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you on behalf of IBM, Nohau, MicroGenesis and QAdvis for taking your valuable time to attend this webinar. And thank you once again. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you, and signing off. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.